What is worship? Sometimes we think that worship is singing songs to God, and sometimes we think that it's honoring God by volunteering, or giving money, or praying, or reading the Bible, and it is all of those things. But it's not just those things. Worship is so much more than that. I looked for a definition of the word worship to help us understand what worship is. Both dictionary.com and Webster's dictionary definitions were a bit hard to grasp. They used words like reverent honor and regarding with extravagant respect. Vocabulary.com had the simplest definition, and I liked it the best. Worship is an extreme form of love. Extreme love is overflowing with love, and extravagant respect would be the greatest respect. Putting it all together, worship is honoring God with overflowing love and great respect. Worship is a matter of our hearts. It is allowing our love for God to change how we speak, how we listen, how we behave. Worship fills our whole lives. But there are acts of worship: singing songs of praise, reading scriptures from the Bible, praying, tithing, that means donating money, and so many others. For today's lesson, we're going to focus on the act of worship that is singing songs and dancing. Singing and dancing are great ways to show celebration. It is even written all through the Bible that we should worship God with song and dance. When we use music to worship God, we celebrate who God is and what He has done. It doesn't even matter if you can keep the beat, or dance, or sing. You could have 2 left feet and only be able to sing 1 note and still be able to worship God through singing and dancing. There's only one wrong way to worship, and that is to worship God and not mean it. Like we talked about, worship is from our hearts. And so we could sing all the words and we could wave our hands around, but if our hearts aren't in it, then it isn't really worship. Let's look at these raisins and these 2 glasses to help us understand the difference. This bouncy bunch of raisins represents us when we are worshiping God with our whole hearts. They are focused on God and not worried about looking foolish or sounding terrible or whether it's their favorite song. And in their worship, they are being lifted up. Scientifically, the tiny bubbles from the carbonated water are forming around the grooves in the raisins, and they are lifting the raisins because bubbles float. But it looks like they are singing and dancing. And that can remind us what happens when we worship with full, extravagant love and extreme respect. When we worship, we connect with God, and we can feel God all around us, and we feel joyful and lifted up. But the raisins that are sitting at the bottom of this glass are like when we worship, but we're really thinking about what happened at school. Or we're singing a song, but we're really thinking about the food we'd like to have for lunch. Or we're dancing, but we're focused more on how we look rather than who we are worshiping and why. Their worship isn't with their full hearts. They aren't showing any extreme or extravagant love to God. And so they aren't being moved by their worship at all. We use the phrase being moved when we talk about that feeling in your heart that sometimes swells up suddenly. That big swollen feeling that makes us want to do something with it. Sometimes it makes us want to forgive somebody or be a friend to someone or pick up garbage on the side of the road. We can do so many good things when we follow the movement of our worship into our lives. But these raisins aren't moving at all, are they? So they're going to have a hard time moving their worship into their life. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 says, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, then I am nothing but a noisy gong or clanging cymbal." Basically, Paul is saying, I can say all the right things, but if I don't have love, then I am just a noisy nothing. So worship is music and it is dancing, but it is more than just music and dancing. Worship is an experience and a lifestyle. We experience specific acts of worship, like singing and praising God in church, or in your car, or in your room. And in worship, we are able to connect to God and become inspired and motivated and ready to move from our act of worship into a life of worship. So this week, let's be the dancing raisins. Let's make sure that we are moving and worshiping God with our whole hearts, focused on Him and His blessings, giving thanks in all circumstances, so that we can feel the power of worship move us. And then let's promise to take that movement with us through the week, so that we can live our worship in the way that we listen and speak and treat others.